Hello everyone! In this lesson, we will learn how to set up additional local dev environment projects. To be more specific, this lesson is for those of you who are using my Vagrant and VirtualBox local dev environment setup. Because at the very beginning of this course, we set up our fictionaluniversity.dev local environment, but in the real world, you're going to need to work on more than just one website or one project. So, for an example, what if we needed to start developing and creating a new local website for a pet adoption company? So maybe I want my local dev domain to be pets.dev, and I want it to be a completely new, separate, standalone installation of WordPress. So how in the world would we set that up? Well, that's exactly what we're going to cover in this lesson. And you'll be able to rinse and repeat this process again and again to create as many different websites as you need to. Without further ado, let's get started. So the first step is to just create a new folder for our new website. So in my case, on my desktop, I have this folder named Local Sites, and within it, this is where my Fictional University folder lives. So let's just create a brand new folder that sits side by side with our existing site. So new folder, I will name it Pets. Maybe I want to create a pet adoption website. Okay, but the key point here is that this is the area where we want to create the new folder for the website. So it should be in this same directory that contains our Fictional University site, as well as our file named Vagrant file. Okay, now let's dig into our brand new folder that we just set up. And now this is subjective personal preference, but I like to create a folder named App, and that's where my actual website and source code can live. But then this main folder here, the main pets folder, can contain other things. Like if you use npm, this is where your node modules can live. You can have a readme file in this folder, your package.json, your gulp file, your webpack config file. So that's just personal preference. You don't have to set up an extra layer of an app folder. If you wanted to, you could use this as the base of your website. Totally up to you, but just so you know, I'm creating an app folder, and within that app folder is where I will create an index.php file that says, "Hello world, welcome to the pet website." Right? This is where my actual website will live. So maybe I will open up the app folder in my text editor. Okay, and within the app folder, I can create a brand new file. Maybe I will create a heading level 1 and say, "Welcome to the pet website." Okay, and then I will save that within the app folder and name it index.php. Okay, so now we have a file that we can test against. So our first goal is just to see this rendered as a web page within our web browser. All right, so now that we've completed the first step of creating a new folder, right, we've got this brand new pets folder that sits alongside Fictional University. With that in place, now our next step is to tell our Vagrant and VirtualBox environment to set up a new virtual host for the new website. Basically, we're going to tell our local dev environment about this new folder that we set up, and we will also tell it what fake local domain we want to use for the new website. So to do all of that, I want you to dig into this folder named Puppet. It's technically not named Puppet, it's a play on words. It's using a technology named Puppet, but it's geared towards PHP development. That's why the middle letters are PHP. Okay, but let's dig into this folder and see this file named config.yaml. I want you to open this in your text editor. This file controls just about every aspect of our local dev environment. Now I want you to scroll down until we see a section named Apache. Keep scrolling, keep scrolling. So for me, it's on line 218. It will probably be in that general ballpark for you. Okay, but once you see this area where it says Apache : then within that area, there is a section named vhosts. Now at the moment, we only have one vhost, or one virtual host. This entry right here. You can see its name is fictionaluniversity.dev. So each website is a vhost. So to tell our server about our new pets folder, we just want to duplicate this, right? This vhost entry with this random identifier string and all of this code. We just want to copy and paste this and then change the name to point towards a new pet domain and point towards our new pets folder. So within this vhosts block, this random identifier string and everything indented under it represents our vhost for Fictional University. So if you scroll down, we want to highlight all of this. You can stop highlighting when you see that the text indents back to the far left. Okay, but all of this indented code, including the random identifier string, is part of what we want to copy and paste. So copy that into your clipboard. And then down at the bottom, right below it, let's just paste in your clipboard. Okay, then scroll back up a bit. And that random identifier string, this is the beginning of the code that we just duplicated. Right, so to review, we've got our Apache area, then vhosts. This first ID and indented area is for Fictional University. And then if we scroll down, now this is going to be for our new website. So the first thing we want to do is just change the random identifier string in any way. There's no science to this or rhyme or reason. So for example, I could change the first two letters to be XY. Or you could change the next three characters to be 1, 2, 3. The idea is that you just want a new unique string. Okay, and then let's modify the server name. Instead of fictionaluniversity.dev, it will be pets.dev. Let's change the server alias to also be pets.dev. The doc root, okay, what folder should the server look in? Let's say, instead of Fictional University, pets, the pets folder /app. Remember, you don't have to use the app subfolder if you don't want to. Okay, let's keep scrolling down. Under directories, we also want to give this random identifier a new unique string. So just modify it in any way. You can change the end or the beginning, the middle. Maybe instead of AVD, I will change it to ABC. And maybe delete the last three characters and replace it with 321. Doesn't matter, just make it unique. Okay, let's update the path. Let's look inside our pets folder. Okay, let's keep scrolling down. Basically, anytime you see a random identifier string, you just want to change it in some way for the new website. So maybe I'll change this to be ABCD. Same with this. Maybe I will change the first four characters to be XYZA. Scroll down a bit more, do the same for this. AABB. All right, now at this point, we can go ahead and save this file. And now we need to tell our local dev environment that it should rebuild itself or reconfigure itself based on this updated config file. So to do that, jump over to your command line and navigate to the folder that is powering your Vagrant VirtualBox setup. So for me, that's the local sites folder, right? So basically the directory where usually in your command line you would run Vagrant up to turn the server on or Vagrant halt to turn the server off. Okay, and once you're in that correct folder and your server is up and running, right? I'm able to visit fictionaluniversity.dev at the moment. Well, now I want you to run a brand new command named vagrant space and then provision. Push enter. And this tells our local dev environment to rebuild or update itself based on the latest changes we made to the config file. Depending on the speed and power of your computer, that could take anywhere from a minute to 10 minutes. But once it completes, then our next step is to update our computer's hosts file. So that when I go to my browser and type in pets.dev into the address bar, it knows what I'm trying to do, right? I don't want to look out onto the internet for pets.dev. I just want to look locally within my dev environment. And we make that happen by editing our computer's hosts file. Now, depending on whether you are using a Mac or a PC, the steps are a bit different, but I will cover both. So at first, if you're using a Mac, in your command line, you can just run the following command: sudo nano / /etc/hosts. Push enter, then type in your password. Okay, so this is our hosts file. We just want to go down to this bottom entry that's targeting the IP address of our local dev environment. You can see we've already listed fictionaluniversity.dev, and on that same line at the end, just include a space after fictionaluniversity.dev, and let's include pets.dev. Okay, then we can press Control and O, not Command, but Control, Control O, and then press Enter to save. And then we can exit this by pressing Control X. Cool. Now, if you're on Windows, you will want to open up the Notepad program as an administrator, and then open up the file that is located here, the C drive or your main operating system drive, and then Windows, System32, drivers, and then inside the etc folder will be a file named hosts. Okay, and then just do the same thing. On that line where we already have fictionaluniversity.dev, at the end of that line, just add a space and say pets.dev. Okay, now as soon as you save that file, then you might need to completely quit your web browser. In some cases, you might even need to restart your computer, but now if you visit pets.dev in the address bar, perfect. This is that index.php file we created earlier in the lesson. But let's not call it quits yet, because you probably don't just want a simple PHP website, you want a WordPress-powered site. So let's go download WordPress right now. In a new tab, visit the official wordpress.org website. Then let's click Download, and then the Download button. And then look in your computer's Downloads folder. There's the WordPress zip file. Let's go ahead and extract it. Okay, and then within that new folder that it creates, if you look inside it, we just want to move all of these files to live within our new Pets app folder. So I will leave this folder open, but then also on my computer, I will open up my local sites and then the Pets folder and jump into my app folder, right? And I'm going to delete my index.php that we set up earlier. And instead, I'm just going to move over all of the WordPress setup files. So within the extracted downloaded zip, just push Control or Command A to select everything and drag it into your Pets app folder. Okay, now back in the tab where I'm visiting pets.dev, if I refresh, here we see the WordPress auto installer. So if I try to continue with my selected language, WordPress says, whoa, 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 stop the train. You need to create a WP config file that tells me how to connect to your database, right? Basically, we need to give WordPress an empty database to work with, so it can store all of our posts and pages and settings and user accounts. So before we set up that WP config file, first the question becomes, how can we create a brand new database within our VirtualBox and Vagrant dev environment? Well, to get started, let's jump over to our command line. So make sure that you've navigated to the directory where you would usually run Vagrant up or Vagrant halt. And right now, I want you to run a command named Vagrant SSH. And this is one of the coolest features of Vagrant. It's that easy to SSH in to the Linux machine that is powering our local server. So now we can run whatever commands we want as the administrator of this local server. Now before we continue, just a quick note, if you are using Windows, this is why I encouraged you to use the git bash as your command line. I don't believe the default Windows command prompt has SSH support. The Windows PowerShell might, I'm not sure, but I know for a fact that git bash supports this without any problems. Okay, anyways, once you can see that you've logged in, we are free to run commands. Now back to the task at hand, we want to create a new database. So if we type MySQL, and then a space, and then -u for user, and we want to use the root user, and then /p. If we press enter, that will prompt us for a password. And I can tell you that the password for this account is 123. So type in 123 and then press enter. Cool, so now we've logged into the database system and we can do whatever we want. For example, if you want to see a list of all of your current databases, you can say show databases and be sure to end the line with a semicolon. Cool, so our fictional university is actually powered by a database with this generic name of DBName. Now, if we want to go ahead and create a new database, we can just say create database and then make up whatever name you want. So just as an example, if I say test123, and you have to be sure to end the line with a semicolon and then press enter, that created a brand new database. If you want to prove it, you can just run show databases again, end with a semicolon. Cool, and there's the list, and you can see test123. Now, just as a quick exercise, I'm going to show you how to delete a database. I'm going to delete test123, and then create a new database named pets. So if you want to delete a database, you just say drop database, and then the name of the one you want to delete. So test123. End with a semicolon. And then you could run show databases once again to make sure that it got deleted. Cool, so we no longer see test123. And finally, let's go ahead and create a new database and name it pets. So create database pets. End with a semicolon, press enter. You don't need to, but show databases just to make sure. Cool, there it is. I don't need to run any more database commands, so you can press Control-C to exit the database system, and then when you want to close this SSH connection, you can just type exit. So now, let's go ahead and create a WP config file that points towards that brand new database. So, within our local sites, pets folder, and then within the app folder, along with all the WordPress files, there's one in particular named wp-config-sample.php. So rename that and remove the sample from the end of the name. So it's just wp-config.php. And then I want you to open that file in a text editor. Okay, on around line 23, we want to change the database name to be pets. The username is dbuser. The password is 123, and we can leave localhost for the MySQL host name. So go ahead and save that. And now back in the browser, you can just get rid of the end part of this URL. Just visit the base pets.dev. Select your language, and you're off to the races. WordPress can now connect to the database, and from here, you know what to do. You can leverage all of your experience and coding skills to build whatever WordPress site you can imagine. And that's going to bring this lesson to a close. Feel free to revisit this video whenever you need to set up a new project or a new local website. You can rinse and repeat this process as many times as you need to. Our one VirtualBox and Vagrant setup can host a ton of websites. Anyways, let's keep things rolling, and I will see you in the next lesson.